In 2007, 1 out of every 2 smartphones sold on planet Earth was a Nokia. The company was the pride of Finland. At its peak, it accounted for 1/5 of the country's entire exports. 6 years later, Nokia sold its phone business for less than the profit it once made in a single year. Here's what makes this story terrifying. Nobody at Nokia was stupid. They saw the iPhone coming. They had built one first. This is the story of how a company can know everything and still lose everything. To understand the fall, you have to understand how high they were. Nokia started in 1865 as a paper mill. Rubber boots, car tires, television sets. Then, in the 1990s, it bet the entire company on mobile phones, and won bigger than anyone in industrial history. Between 1996 and 2001, revenue grew 5-fold. By the year 2000, Nokia was the most valuable company in Europe. The 3310 became a cultural icon. The ringtone, you can hear it right now, can't you? At headquarters in Espoo, Finland, they weren't asking whether they would lead the mobile future. They were asking how large the lead would be now. Here is where the story turns. And it turns earlier than you think. Years before Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco, Nokia engineers had built an iPhone, a touchscreen device, a full web browser, apps. Nokia's own chief designer later said of the concept, "We had it completely nailed." In 2003, Nokia even announced one, the 7700, a wide touchscreen, internet-first design. It was canceled before a single unit shipped. And a former employee told the New York Times about another internet-ready touchscreen prototype in 2004, 3 years before the iPhone. Killed. Why? Fear that it would flop. Fear it was too expensive. And fear of something else. Something harder to say out loud. In a boardroom. It might cannibalize the phones that were already printing money. The most dangerous moment for a market leader is not when it runs out of ideas. It's when its own ideas become threats to its own success. The rot had 2 layers. The first was technical. Nokia's operating system, Symbian, was aging and fractured. It splintered into incompatible platforms, S60, UIQ, MOAP. An app built for one wouldn't run on another. In 2005, a security redesign broke compatibility with everything that came before. Developers needed months to build what took days on newer systems. Nokia's own tools still relied on a compiler from the 1990s. In 2011. The second layer was human. Researchers who later studied Nokia's collapse, through interviews with dozens of insiders, documented what they called a culture of fear. Executives shouted, tables were banged, careers were threatened. So middle managers learned a survival skill: soften the bad news. One insider recalled being told to move the data points on a chart to give a better impression. Think about what that means. The people at the top were steering the ship, using maps their own crew had quietly redrawn. Nokia's leadership wasn't blind. Their organization had learned to blindfold them. January 9th, 2007. Steve Jobs holds up a slab of glass. Inside Nokia, the official reaction was calm. No keyboard, no battery life, too expensive, no enterprise security. And here's the thing, every one of those criticisms was true, and none of them mattered. Because Apple hadn't launched a better phone. It had launched a different game, a war of ecosystems. Software, developers, an app store. A phone that improved after you bought it. Then it got worse. In 2008, Google gave Android away for free. Every manufacturer Nokia competed with suddenly had a modern operating system that cost them nothing. Nokia still sold nearly 500 million phones in 2007, its most profitable year ever. The fortress looked intact. The foundation was already gone. By 2010, the board had seen enough. They hired an outsider, Stephen Elop, from Microsoft. 5 months in, he wrote a memo to all employees. It leaked within hours, and it became one of the most famous documents in business history. He described a man on a burning oil platform in the North Sea. Stay and burn, or leap into freezing black water. We too, he wrote, are standing on a burning platform. The iPhone had shipped in 2007, and Nokia still had nothing close. Android had just taken the volume lead. Unbelievable, he wrote. Days later, Elop announced the leap. Nokia would abandon its own software and bet everything on Microsoft's Windows Phone. But there was a catastrophic flaw in the plan. The first Windows Phone was a year away, and Elop had just told the world Nokia's current products were on fire. Who buys a phone from a burning platform? Symbian sales didn't decline. They collapsed. Nokia had pre-announced its own obsolescence, with nothing to sell in its place. In September 2013, the announcement came. Nokia was selling its entire phone business to Microsoft. 5.44 billion euros. For a business that, 6 years earlier, had been the most valuable in Europe. During Elop's tenure, the stock had fallen 62%. Smartphone share from 33% to 3%. So, what actually killed Nokia? It wasn't ignorance. They saw everything coming. It wasn't a lack of technology. They built the future first, then filed it away. The researchers who interviewed Nokia's executives found something more unsettling than any strategic blunder. A company where fear flowed downward and comfortable lies flowed up. Top managers feared the market. Middle managers feared the top managers. And between those two fears, the truth simply disappeared. Nokia's real product in those final years wasn't phones. It was reassurance. Here is the paradox, and it applies to every dominant company. Maybe to every dominant anything. Success builds the machine, that hides the evidence of decline. The more you win, the more your organization learns that good news is what leadership wants to hear. Nokia didn't fail to see the future. It failed to survive its own past. And somewhere right now, inside the most successful company of this decade, a middle manager is looking at a chart that tells the truth and deciding to move the data points.